people have been sending me their art, and I'm most gracious. Tim Lim told me that artists have to be paid. No, Tim Lim. Some people are working for love. Guys, follow me on Twitter before I get kicked off. My troll game is a freaking 1. I just got kicked off of Instagram after a week. If you want to support my vitally important work, who am I kidding, you can drop $1 a month on Patreon to watch videos early. Except for EVS. His tier is a little higher. How is this for a title? Mitch Breitweiser is a good guy. Chill, y'all. I read this Bleeding Fool article. A couple of issues I came up with. Funding a second project while waiting for the first. Do you trust the guy? What were the terms of the original contract? There's just going to be a minute of legalese here, and then we'll get into this article. The problem is that a lot of these Indiegogo terms are ambiguous. Usually in a basic contract, you want the essential terms clearly laid out. Price, parties, terms, conditions, shipping. What is substantial performance or complete performance? Contracts should always be simple and clear, and you don't need a JD to write one. You can find samples to download. I promise you, once you've read a few simple contracts, you'll know what's up. We're not talking about multi-party, multi-state, that kind of complicated stuff. They're just selling a project. It's not brutally hard. If the contract terms are vague, then you're hoping the other party will act in good faith and fair dealings and perform to the best of their abilities. So, Comicscape projects need to have clear contractual terms on time for performance, page count, printing quality, etc. Don't be afraid to get on Twitter or in the YouTube comments and push for a clear contract with essential terms. We need to hold them accountable. The only thing we need to allow some wiggle room on is time for performance. Your first project is going to be a challenge. What about contractual delays caused by third parties? How should the contract deal with the Mark Wade factor? Mark the douchebag Wade. Write it in the contract. Keep in mind that if they offer you your money back, then you have no cause of action. I think Sketch Therapy was mad about not getting Doug Tennapel's book because I guess he lives overseas and the shipping was a problem or something. But if he got his money back, then he has no legal standing. You have to understand what a contract is and what your remedies are. If you don't like the terms of the contract, don't buy the book. There are alternative books. You can't force specific performance usually, and you can't force someone to amend their contractual terms to suit you. So the issue of starting a second project while the first one is unfulfilled is tricky. Without contract terms, you have to look outside the four corners of the document to customs and practices of the industry. Crowdfunded books are often late. But starting a different campaign isn't necessarily a problem for me. Say one guy finishes his part, the pencils, so there's no point in making him wait for everyone else to finish. He should be free to start a second project. But it all comes down to a question of trust. Do you trust these guys? Do they have a history of fulfilling contracts on time? The problem is that for people's first campaigns, there's no history to judge them on. So for the first campaign, it might not be a good idea to fund a second project before the first one is complete. If Zach did it, fine. People trust Zach because he has a greater internet presence. People feel like they know him. Mitch doesn't have that same presence. That's why his second project didn't do as well. But the more I see of Mitch on live streams, the better I feel about him. If he wants to establish trust with the customer, do more live streams and join other live streams. It takes time, but crowdfunding is mostly selling yourself, not your project. And yes, myself personally, I trust Mitch. I didn't order Red Rooster because it wasn't my cup of tea, but from what I've seen of him, seems like a perfectly normal, trustworthy guy. And you gotta consider a lot of factors besides the contractual terms. He's married, he has a stable living situation. You have to look outside the contract. He's got some internet presence. Like, we know who he is. He's in the public forum. You know what I mean? It's not some anonymous account who's trying to sell some book. It's a whole different experience. He's got business dealings. He's in the community, is what I'm saying. And yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with funding a second project from him. But again, look through the terms of the contract. And if you're not happy with them, and I mentioned this before, nobody seems to be as interested in it. And I don't think the big crowdfunding guys, the Ethan Van Sciver's and Richard Meyer, are so interested in having a non-ambiguous contract because nobody, when you hold the whip hand, you don't want to get nailed down on a contract, time for performance, delivery, page count, that kind of thing. They want it to be ambiguous, but we as the customers, it is in our best interest to nail down contracts, and it is, truth be told, it's also in their best interest because you can't claim resentment if the contract is specific. If the time for performance is, well, we're going to try to get it to you in 6 months, but it could be as late as, say 12 months. And what happens if it's later than 12 months? Well, then simply refund your money. Have those kind of contingencies. But we can talk about that in another video. It's not necessarily technical. Writing contracts is not long and involved. Maybe in a live stream we can talk about that. I get the feeling if EVS talks about it, he'll kind of deflect on it, because I don't think he sees this in his interest. But again, anyway, so this article is by Preston Poulter, and obviously he has an axe to grind. Everyone in Comicsgate has an axe to grind now, because it's just so freaking ridiculous. But so keep it in mind. Every time you read an article, look at somebody's bias. He has an axe to grind. I probably have an axe to grind too, as people tell me repeatedly in the comments, which is fine. I don't delete any comments. The only comments I would ever have to delete would be if YouTube hid them because of certain hot words. Then YouTube is hiding them, not me. Anyway. And for some reason, YouTube hides my comments, because when I make comments on my page, I'll use certain words I'm not supposed to use. And they'll hide my own comments just for calling something sexy or something. They hit it. It's bizarre. You have to hit show comments in order of time or something like that. Anyway, okay, so this is talking about charges of sabotage have begun swirling around Mitch Breitweiser's crowdfunding campaign for his latest project, the futurist Noah Saga. Indiegogo tracking around 40 grand. That's nothing to sneeze about, no doubt. I mean, at one time, 40 grand was a very successful campaign, but his first campaign was, I think, 200, so Red Rooster. Start decline close to, yeah, okay. Unfulfilled status, well past its original. See, now, he says the March 2019 promise date. Is that an absolute detail of the contract? I don't know, because I didn't read the contract, and that's a lot of problem with Indiegogos, is that they're very ambiguous. Kickstarter is even worse. You got to look at the industry. A lot of these guys, B. Claymore and all these other idiots, they're even later. If the book is 5 years late, yeah, you're not getting it. If the book's 2 years late, you're not getting it. A year late, yeah, it's still a pretty good chance. Okay, so backing decline is no doubt disappointing. Recently announced on the updates page, Red Rooster, the new venture has entered into a partnership with Walmart. Okay, great. So he's doing business. He's expanding, doing business. That's probably going to slow things down a little bit. Is that a deal breaker for you? I don't know. Probably not, because I think you're gonna get the book. Like, people were complaining about Comicsgate, guys, but everyone that I know of in Comicsgate, I strongly have a high probability feeling that you're going to get the book. Okay, start of capital. I mean, a lot of this is arguing feelings and not facts without actually specifically looking at the Red Rooster contract. Okay, so he funded this company, whatever. Charges, why did the second campaign not do as well? He's talking about he was harassed. He was getting harassment and blackmail and stuff like that. And the thing is, yes, I believe him and his wife were getting harassed by SJWs. Absolutely. I see what they are like every day. My God, Antifa goes to people's houses. They went to Andy Nago's house wearing masks to threaten and intimidate him. So they're absolutely insane. And at the time when this stuff was all getting started, to say you were with Comicsgate was like saying, oh my God, you must be a Trump supporter if you're with Comicsgate. So what does that make me? Oh yes, it makes you evil. Whatever, you 20-year-old commie childish weirdos, literally living in a basement. Okay, so a lot of these guys who are anti-Comicsgate, they're talking about Tug, and they say like, oh, well, the mailbox didn't happen. Occam's razor, yeah, I believe he was attacked by some nut jobs who were probably friends of Infamous, because we see these nut jobs every day in the news. These left-wing nut jobs attacking people. Yeah, I don't think Tug destroyed his own mailbox. I think a friend of Infamous probably destroyed his mailbox. And is it a big deal in the greater scheme of things? Probably not. I mean, what's the worst that could happen is someone comes to destroy your mailbox and you might get shot. But other than that, other than that minor detail, or someone comes to your front door, you're probably going to catch some buckshot. Anyway, So a lot of this is kind of spurging out. And then a lot of it comes down to, what was the contract terms, and do you trust Mitch Breitweiser? He looks like he doesn't look like he doesn't look like he's untrustworthy. I mean, he's not shaking and jittering and, unshowered and unkept greasy hair doing drugs or anything. Yes, you're going to get your books. Anyway, so more controversy stirred up by artist Kelsey Shannon while promoting the project on a live stream with a group known as War Campaign. Yes, we know who War Campaign is. Kelsey participated in the ridiculing of another comic artist, Edwin Boyette, publicly objected, sometimes questioned whether Shannon's conduct associations might prove problematic. It brought to the attention of large-scale retailers through which Breitweiser... Oh, God, what the fuck is wrong with everyone? Oh, my... See, I wasn't aware of this kind of stuff, and because there's no way you could watch every show, and I don't want to watch every show. I don't want to watch a lot of Comicsgate anymore. It's leaving a bad taste in my mouth more and more. That's where the small channels are doing better and better, and I think there's like a drawn and quartered, and then there's fan edition, which is becoming more popular, and I think Nerd Wonder is going to go on it, and just to get away from the big people fighting with each other over absolutely nothing. Just, I could go on. I got to get my computer set up and do live streams and talk about this kind of stuff. Anyway, so it comes down to, do you trust Mitch? Yes, he's trustworthy. Do we want more specific contracts in the future? Yes, we need more specific contracts in the future. Anyway. You can check out Bleeding Full, and I mean, a lot of this is some of it's sour grapes by this guy, the White Lily guy. The comic looks amazing, but he does raise some good points, and it's like everyone on YouTube seems to think like, oh, if you criticize Ethan Van Sciver and War Campaign, you're the enemy. Well, no, they do a lot of good things too. The idea is to try to be as objective as possible. So I can criticize this guy, White Lily guy, but also say his book looks fantastic and should be supported if you're into World War II kind of stuff and hot chicks kissing. I mean, does he do some autistic, retarded stuff? Yes, of course he does, because I do too. We all do. Anyway, guys, do you want to enter the art contest? You think you can ink? You think you can draw me a design? Send me your art. You want to support the channel? Yada, yada. I'll put the links. All right, guys, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next episode.